Farmers across Europe have renewed demonstrations to demand action from policymakers. Apart from cheap supermarket prices and low-cost imports, they are also concerned about the European Union's strenuous environmental rules. In response to weeks of protests, the EU has already weakened some parts of its flagship Green Deal environmental policies. It has scrapped the goal to cut farming emissions from its 2040 climate roadmap. Now, the EU has also withdrawn a law to reduce pesticides and delayed a target for farmers to leave some land fallow to improve biodiversity. But farmers are demanding more. In the second large-scale protest this month in Belgium's Brussels, thousands of farmers from Belgium, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands and other EU member states drove more than 500 tractors gathered near the EU headquarters. Local police set up barbed wire and barriers outside EU institutions. Now, while the farmers were protesting, EU's agriculture ministers held a meeting under heavy guarding by the Belgian police. Now, EU officials have now acknowledged that more ambitious proposals are needed to address farmers' worries. Belgium's Deputy Prime Minister said at the meeting that the European Union's Executive Commission needs to present more ambitious proposals to reduce farmers' concerns.
The Council has agreed that these policies go in the right direction. These measures will constitute the first concrete step that we will make to quickly respond at the European level to some of the worries of farmers. But the Council considers that this is not enough. The Council invites the Commission to supplement these measures with new, more ambitious measures. Indeed, the reduction of the administrative burden is one of the concerns mentioned by the agriculture community, but this is not all.
Now, amid the protests, the European Parliament has approved an EU flagship law to restore nature, salvaging at least part of its plan to protect the environment. It passed despite the European People's Party's opposition. The biggest lawmaker group in the EU Parliament said it would subject farmers to more red tape. The nature policy is said to be one of EU's biggest pieces of environmental legislation. It now needs final approval from EU countries before it enters into force. The protests against EU's green policies come even as European countries like Greece witness harsh weather conditions, such as wildfires ripping through the north last year or Storm Daniel dumping 18 months of rain in 4 days in September. The threat of climate change has put several farmers across the country in a very difficult position. Our next report will tell you more on this.
These fruitless almond trees belong to farmer Babis Evangelinos. He's one of the many farmers in central Greece still reeling from unprecedented flooding last year. The situation is disappointing, he says. I could never have imagined I would have to board a boat to get to see my land. His small plot is on the Thessaly Plain, a key breadbasket in Greece. It normally accounts for a quarter of the country's agricultural produce. But last year, storms submerged about 35,000 acres in the area near Lake Karla. One estimate suggests it could take up to 2 years for the water to subside. The flooding has raised questions about the Mediterranean country's ability to cope with an increasingly erratic climate. Last year, wildfires scorched the north. Then, Storm Daniel dumped 18 months' worth of rain in a matter of days. It and another storm, Elias, slammed into Evangelinos' small plot. Tens of thousands of acres of cotton fields, almond trees, and grazing land were submerged, when nearly 18 billion cubic feet of water poured into the area. The work of a lifetime has been destroyed, lost in 3-4 days of rain, he says. Like in India, France, and Poland, farmers here want more help. Thousands of them descended on Athens. Beyond climate change, they're also worried about rising costs, foreign competition, and what they see as a lack of government support. So far, the government has offered up the equivalent of about $160 million in compensation. Another roughly $120 million is set to come in July. There have been other gestures too, like discounts on power bills and a diesel tax rebate, but after a decade-long financial crisis, the government is cash-strapped. It's unclear if it will offer more. What's key, according to Thessaly Governor Dimitris Kouraitas, is pumping the water out, and fast. Local authorities want to start in one area in April. There are a few thousand families living here, he says. Do we want them to go? As for Evangelinos, he had been banking on harvesting about 11 US tons of almonds this season. He's managed less than half of that and isn't sure how he'll pay for his 2 daughters' university expenses. But Evangelinos says he's not giving up. If needed, he wants to uproot damaged trees and plant new ones, if the soil is fit for cultivation.
Fueled by unusually warm weather, a massive wildfire in Texas has ravaged over 250,000 acres, prompting widespread evacuations and road closures. Footage showed Greenville firefighters driving through wildfires as thick smoke engulfed the area. The Smokehouse Creek fire, now the largest among multiple wildfires in northern Texas, has rapidly expanded since it ignited on Monday afternoon. The Smokehouse Creek fire currently ranks as the 5th largest wildfire in Texas history, surpassing the total area burnt by all fires in the state last year.
We're in the tornado zone and fire zone here the last few years. And I'd call it climate change and global warming, but I'm not woke. It happens every year about this time.
Texas Governor Greg Abbott has issued a disaster declaration for 60 counties. Evacuation orders are in effect for several communities, including Moore and Potter counties and parts of Roberts County near the Oklahoma border. The wildfire also crossed from Texas into Oklahoma and prompted evacuations there as well. But the firefighting efforts now face additional challenges, with the forecasted cold front exacerbating the dry conditions. The United States is experiencing wild weather. Multiple cities are experiencing summer-like heat and have reached record February temperatures. But another cold spell is predicted soon. Forecasters say residents will be going from wearing Bermuda shorts to snow pants in less than 24 hours. The summery highs aren't expected to last, with temperatures set to quickly plunge back into deep winter chills. Footage from New York's skyline showed the city covered with fog. Experts say it is hard to pinpoint any single weather pattern to climate change, but extreme weather is becoming more frequent because of it.
Spring weather. We're just having super warm weather. Feels like we gotta fast forward to spring.
And the temperature today is really warm. To say that it should be the beginning of spring is just like a little hot out here. Last year we didn't have all this heat. But hey, my concern is that it's a little warm, but it's also bringing business out. So hopefully everybody can just stay hydrated and safe during this heat spell.
Although weather climbed into the 70s in Chicago, it is forecasted to dive below freezing soon. The National Weather Service summarized Chicago's weather pattern as seeing summer, spring, fall and winter crammed into the next 24 hours. Similar temperature swings are expected across the middle of the country, possibly bringing brutal storm patterns, including tornadoes and hail. This week's heat wave follows other unusual conditions across the U.S. this winter. From an atmospheric river in California that dumped a year's worth of rain in a matter of hours to historic low levels of ice cover atop the Great Lakes. Rising air pollution due to excessive flights has become a crucial issue for climate activists. A new study now claims that London is the most exposed city in the world to air pollution from aviation. It says every year Londoners are exposed to harmful nitrogen oxides and particulate matter that are equivalent to emissions from more than 3 million cars. The reports claim the Heathrow Airport in London spews 9.1 million tons of carbon dioxide every year. The 6 airports put the UK capital ahead of Tokyo and Dubai. The report identified Heathrow Airport as the second worst global airport for climate impact. It found that Dubai Airport is the world's most polluting airport. In a single year, the airport contributed 20.1 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. This is equivalent to emissions from at least 5 coal power plants. The report is published by a think tank called Transport and Environment in Tokyo and Dubai, while residents are exposed to 2.78 million cars worth of emissions from air traffic. It also found that the largest 20 airports, when taken together, produced carbon emissions equal to 58 coal-fired power stations. Critics and climate activists have long called for proper safeguards at airports. However, they still find improper safeguards to avoid air pollution at major airports around the world. They also say the rapid growth of airports is not matching their climate commitments.